Trade rumors are escalating as a writer reveals a blockbuster trade that would change the path of each franchise for the near future. It is the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic who faced off in the first round of the NBA playoffs a couple of years ago, making a deal that would send a backcourt star for another backcourt star. Guys, welcome to Magic Digest. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. This is your one-stop shop for Orlando Magic basketball content here on YouTube. Make sure that if you haven't already, that you hit that subscribe button. 30% of you guys who are watching these videos regularly are not subscribed, so it helps the channel out a lot if you guys do end up subscribing. Okay, as you guys know by the intro video, this is about a trade or a mock trade that has been recently reported involving Darius Garland and the Orlando Magic. Now, when we take a look at Darius Garland and what he was able to do last year, he was a part of this Cavs team and their success. They started out the year 15-0. They won 64 games, I believe, off the top of my head. This past season, they got that first seed, but unfortunately, drawing a lot of comparisons to the 2015 Atlanta Hawks, they were bounced in the second round of the NBA playoffs to the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers are a very talented team, but unfortunately, with a couple of injuries to start this series, the Cavs fell behind and they were not able to give Donovan Mitchell enough help. And one of those players that didn't play well enough was Darius Garland in the playoffs. He did shoot for the season 40% from three, so naturally a lot of people are going to be saying that the Orlando Magic should make a move to try to get him. In a recent mock trade, Clutch Points suggested a blockbuster deal, sending Garland to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Jalen Suggs, Corey Joseph, Caleb Houston, 2025's first-round pick. That is the one via the Nuggets, so it's a little lower than the one that the Magic have, and a 2027 first-round pick, because as we all know, you cannot trade back-to-back first-round picks. There's your lesson for the day. This trade, according to them, would be an overpay on the Magic's end for Garland, who has struggled with injury throughout his career and is a below-average defender. Garland can solve the shooting issues for the Orlando Magic, though. So that may be part of the reason why you would do it if you're the Magic. Maybe if you didn't have to give up all of that draft capital on top of Jalen Suggs, you would potentially want to do it. But Darius Garland is being paid $179 million for his contract, so they would probably, as we all know, to make the cap work, they probably would have to give up a guy like Jalen Suggs. But let's get into this deal on both sides. First things first, though, do I think that this is something that would actually happen? I don't think it makes sense for either team as it stands right now and the landscape of the Eastern Conference playoffs, nor do I think the fit is completely there, at least for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think for the Magic, Darius Garland could slot in and be very valuable for that team, but do you want to give up that much? Obviously not. Okay, so let's dive into this deal. I think that the Cleveland Cavaliers, from their perspective, feel like with how their season ended, based off of all of the injuries and everything that occurred in these playoffs, with Jason Tatum going down, Damian Lillard also going down, so you can practically eliminate both the Bucks and the Celtics from making or being as good as they were this year, next year. So with those two teams eliminated, and you got the Knicks and the Pacers, and forgive me off the top of my head if I'm forgetting anybody else, but I would throw the Magic in there as some serious contenders for the playoffs next season to go deep into the Eastern Conference. And the Detroit Pistons, that was the team that I was missing. Those teams are very, very good. So you compare yourself to those teams and you think healthy, they're deep, they got a ton of different role players on this team. You think that you can take whatever or whoever they could potentially throw at you. I think that is their thinking. So for the Cavs, they have plenty of shooting still on that team, but they got a ton of role players, and they got the Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley, and you have DeAndre Hunter, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Ty Jerome. You got a ton of players, and they practically ran it back from the previous year when they did beat the Magic in the first round of the playoffs, and they fired their coach, brought back everybody, made a couple tweaks to the roster, and they were worlds better. So I think that there's probably reason to believe that they could go into next season and potentially reach new heights. That's why I don't think that they end up doing this deal. I think if they were to really make a change to their roster and try to change things up, they would maybe go for a bigger fish than just maybe a guy like Jalen Suggs. Now, from the Orlando Magic's perspective on things, look, Corey Joseph, Caleb Houston, those are two pieces that I don't think this team minds giving up. Also, I think that this team would give up this Nuggets pick for this year. I don't know how much they want to bring in two rookies again to the fold, especially since you got guys like Jet Howard, Anthony Black, Tristan Da Silva, younger players who are still trying to find their footing on the roster. 2027's first-round pick, who knows how valuable that would be to any team, including the Orlando Magic, so that's a little bit too far out to see. But for Jalen Suggs, as you guys know, I have said that I do think he should be or could be shopped in the near future, just based off of his own injury history. But for a deal like a player like Darius Garland, who has very similar issues as far as being able to stay healthy, maybe some playoff success as well. He didn't play as well whenever he was able to come back from injury in the semifinals against the Pacers. I don't really think it's worth giving up all this capital and Jalen Suggs. Now, obviously, Jalen Suggs is mainly included here because you need to make the cap work. I mean, I think you could potentially run a backcourt with both Garland and Suggs. Now, I don't think that would be ideal, but seeing that Garland can play with Donovan Mitchell, I think that it shows his versatility. But you wouldn't really want to do something like this. Also, where does Anthony Black fit into all of this, right? He would be then slotted as definitely a guy that's coming off the bench. I think next year KCP is going to be the guy coming off the bench. And that is something that we haven't really gotten into too much in the offseason. But if Anthony Black can turn himself into that true table setter, if you've been following the Magic for a little over a year now, you know Paolo Banchero wants a table setter, then potentially Jalen Suggs would play that too, and Anthony Black would be the one. So I don't really know if it makes sense for the Cavs or the Magic, but I figured I'd bring that up, and I think that there's definitely something to like there with Anthony Black. There's something, in my opinion, that he improved on as the season went on last year that was really positive, and I don't really see this team giving up on that just yet. Now, he obviously wasn't included in this trade, and if you were to give up Jalen Suggs, maybe Anthony Black does move into the backcourt as is, like I mentioned just a second ago, but I don't really think that is optimal, and I think that that's just too big of a move for something that potentially doesn't really move the needle for the Orlando Magic, and he's obviously got his deal going. So Jalen Suggs also was a very good player for this team last year, and as much as I have mentioned tons of different deals with him, it really just comes down to the salary cap situation for the Magic. Whenever I do address some stuff like that, I still think Jalen Suggs showed much improvement from what he was in 2023-24, and there was a lot to like. Now, obviously, the injuries need to be cleared up. He needs to play a full season healthy next year for me to really be on that train, but that's just something that we'll have to watch. Regardless, he's really good on the court, and this team definitely needs him. One thing I did also want to bring up is that if you guys have been paying attention, Paolo Banchero does have that video diary, and it kind of made the rounds a little bit last week on Twitter. But I thought it was very interesting. It's something that I do apply to whenever I look a lot at these different trades, these mock trades, these rumors that go around, is his quotes and what he says. Paolo Banchero mentioned a little bit about, the reflection on last season. As a team, we just learned that you can't take a season for granted. You can't come in and expect the things to just be how they were last season or be perfect. I'm not saying we did, but this season was just a wake-up call for us as a group. That stuff in this league is always changing. It never is the same. You have to be ready for whatever happens. Now, I think that was really interesting because it's kind of been a theme a little bit towards the end of this year and into the offseason, where we realized that as much as this team felt like they were a year ahead, you're never a year on schedule. You're either feeling like you're a year ahead or you feel like you're a year behind, and you need to start rattling off those win now moves. And I think it's a very important perspective to have, that sometimes your time is right now. With the salary cap, with the way that these players are progressing, as well as the injuries that have come up to some of these contenders in the Eastern Conference, it seems like now or next season is maybe potentially the best time for this team to make a run. And I think the Cavs are thinking the same thing. So I think from both teams' perspective, this is a deal that, while it could pick up steam as the draft comes and free agency rolls around, is not exactly something I think fits on both of these teams' timelines, even though both players are probably kind of similar-ish in age. Nobody's old and a veteran at this point, but it's just something that doesn't really fit either of these teams and what they want to do. But as always, I'll link this article that I get this from in the description down below. And if you guys want to check out the other channel that I have that's covering the NBA, that'll be always appreciated. We're covering all of the different games coming up in the playoffs, as well as some stuff when free agency rolls around. So it's a lot of fun over there too if you guys want to go check that out. But as always, I will see you guys next time with more Orlando Magic basketball content.